All right, guys, welcome back. We are here with another 2021 MLB Draft show. I am joined by a special guest, a contributor to Prospects Live, Mr. Wyatt Kleinberg. We haven't had Wyatt on the show yet, but
Glad
he's
to be here.
quite a mind, quite a mind. Wyatt is an
Thank you.
aspiring baseball ops professional, super into data. He's in the weeds and that sort of thing. So he's going to be a really entertaining guest here. Wyatt, I want to jump right into it, man. So let's see. You're a Marlins fan,
Yeah,
big Marlins guy. So tell me a little bit about this season for you, and then maybe on a more poignant note, what you thought of Max Meyer and the entire haul for the Marlins this past draft.
absolutely. So this year was a bit of a roller coaster for pretty much anyone that follows anything Marlins. They obviously had the big COVID outbreak. The first thing that I'd say is Michael Hill did a fantastic job with who he brought in to fill in the places. Some guys that you've probably never heard of whatsoever. You had Eddie Alvarez. Guy was literally a speed skater. He contributed really nicely, especially on the defensive side. Also helped ingrain that running culture that we saw kind of push them into the postseason. Ryan Lavarnway had been kind of a journeyman type of guy. He filled in nicely at catcher. Cervelli was great. So Michael Hill did a fantastic job. The season really did exceed expectations, I think. So having the opportunity to be in the playoffs is kind of special. I'm 20 years old, so getting to actually experience a postseason for the first time was really, really special. The prospects came along really nicely, particularly on the pitching side. We saw Sixto Sanchez perform at a really high level. He still has a burgeoning arsenal, I think, and hasn't really hit his physical peak yet. So I'm interested to see where he goes in the next couple of years. Alcantara finally is starting to push that profile of the ace that they want him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Power sinker, he leaned into more this year over the four-seam fastball, which I thought was really, really nice. We kind of needed that. The four-seam was getting hit a bit, had trouble locating it, so the sinker was a nice adjustment there. He also added a changeup to his arsenal that's been pretty good. And Pablo Lopez's mastery of the changeup is just awesome to watch. So they have a nice young staff, a little bit behind in terms of the hitting prospects coming along. I think they need a couple more years for guys like Chisholm and Sanchez to really show. But things are looking up there, which is really great.
Talk to me a little bit about the draft. What do you think about Max Meyer?
I love Max Meyer. Max Meyer, the moment they took him, it made me smile. They have really pushed in this front office the need to go a little bit more progressive, and they took a leap with Max Meyer. He was projected, as most people know, around the 10 spot, 9-10. They took him at 3. I love what he brings to the table. He has a super, super low release point, great vertical approach angle, which means his fastball is going to play really well up. I rate it up to a 70, that fastball sometimes. It can flirt with triple digits, so I think that it's a really good piece to build off of, and he may have had the best slider in the draft. So it's a great 1-2 punch. He adds one more pitch. He might project as a starter. If not, with the starting staff they currently have, he could be an elite reliever as well. So it'll be interesting to see the development.
All right, man. Well, as you know, this is the 2021 MLB Draft show, so that is what we generally like to focus on. So I'm going to shift into that gear a little bit. You're super ingrained into the MLB Draft. Like I said, you're big into baseball ops. You're big into data analytics. You're big into metrics, pitch data. Talk to me a little bit about this draft class so far. Tell me about maybe just surface level, all-encompassing thoughts on what we're looking at next July.
Absolutely. So I'd say the next 7-8 months, for one, are going to be critical in watching how guys develop, particularly on the prep side. They lost that senior year. A few got in on the circuit with your All-American game type of things, but we really haven't seen full growth. On the college side, it's also the same thing. There are a lot of guys that have played an independent ball this summer. Mason Black is an example of a guy like that who has kind of flown under the radar, who could really, really project up. So I'm interested to see, particularly from the pitching standpoint, how guys hone their pitches and improve maturity-wise. Bodies are obviously going to change more on the high school side. A guy that I like a lot is Jackson Jobe, but he's not completely physically mature yet, in contrast to where an Andrew Painter might be. When you're looking at college arms, I think there are a lot of mid-majors that we haven't looked at enough. I think that the Power 5 pitching is a little bit weaker than it is in a typical year, and we have some really strong mid-major candidates. We have your Rodney Boones. We have our Evan Shavers. These are guys that no one really talks about or people underrate that I think could project up. But over the next 6-7 months, I really want to focus on the college guys going into the spring and then continue to watch that physical development of our high school players.
Love it. Yeah, I think you make a really good point on the Power 5 side because it is seemingly going to be a little bit of a down year as we project right now. There's always guys that pop. Just as of recently, I think we've started to see some of that velo that we've needed to see for a top of the draft. Guys like, we've been, I don't want to say pessimistic, but skeptical of guys like Ty Madden, skeptical of guys like, Jonathan Cannon and some of these other arms that may project well, in the future, but we hadn't seen them throw more, harder than 93, 94. Yep. So to get them into that next tier, Mason Black, you want to see some 7s, you want to see some 8s thrown out there. So I think that's a really good point. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next there. You're looking to LA. I want to talk a little bit about kind of your region because obviously that's going to be something that you're pretty well tapped into. Who from the Southern California area do you have your eyes on? Who are you going to go see live looks at this next spring?
The player that excites me most is Gage Jump. He's a left-handed pitcher. Really nice fastball characteristics, great low release height. Some people give a little bit of a knock on him because he's 5'11", but just like we talked about before with Max Meyer, as long as they're able to take the workload, I'm not really concerned about the shortness of stature, because he has an elite extension. He has a very plus breaking ball. It's shown elite bite at times. Control is not always there with it. Fastball characteristics are wonderful, really flat approach angle. He has the build in terms of his arsenal and the way that he approaches things and metrically that says this guy could be a top of the line big league starter. He's not there yet velocity wise. So I think some teams may be a little bit skeptical in taking him where he's going to have to go. He's going to have to be a first rounder just because UCLA is right there. They've developed big league arms really well. I would love to see a team like the Dodgers take him. They've developed left-handed arms really well. I don't want to call him a Clayton Kershaw comp because there are obviously a lot of things that are different. Kershaw's unique, but in terms of the curveball, that's pretty looping in the low to mid 70s. Fastball that he's probably going to jump around 94, 95. You have some similar traits that they can use and develop guys with. So I would love to see him go there. I don't know if he's going to ask for top 15 money or not, but I feel like he's a guy to watch over the next 6-7 months for that exact progression that we talked about before.
Sure. Yeah, and you mentioned some other guys. I know another guy that's kind of close to you, that Rodney Boone from UC Santa Barbara.
Yes.
Getting a little bit, as we kind of get a little bit deeper here into the fall, getting a little bit more press. I'm starting to see his name pop a little bit in terms of, first 2-3 rounds for next year's draft. Talk to us a little bit about Rodney Boone and why people should be paying attention to UC Santa Barbara of all schools.
UC Santa Barbara actually has one of the best staffs in the country.
That's right.
No one talks about it. They really do. If you don't watch UC Santa Barbara, you probably should. They have multiple candidates for that draft. But Boone in particular is special because he's 6'2", 5 in there, but he has elite vertical break on his fastball. And that's another factor that goes into it. That's partially attributed to his high efficiency. He's near 100% efficiency on the pitch. His axis is also very vertical, which is unique. You usually see guys at 1 o'clock-ish. He's near a 12 o'clock vertical axis, and that plays into the rest of his arsenal really nicely with the breaking ball. He spins it really, really well, and it's continuing to improve. And his maturity, I think, is what stood out to me most. If you look at his 2019, his 2020, he's gone deep into games. And when we're looking at drafting a starting pitcher, I want to see a guy who can go deep into games. If you look at his lines, you see multiple 7-8 inning outings, 1 or 2 runs less, like exactly what you want to see out of a draft candidate, plus his tools play unique.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that he has a lot in common with Gage Jump. That fastball efficiency, it's to get anything close to 12 o'clock is pretty rare. So, data-driven teams, they're going to fall in love with that sort of thing. I don't know if you mentioned the fastball velocity, but that kind of 88, 91, 92, where do you want to see his velo kind of sit next spring if he's to jump into that top 20, top 25 range? Yeah,
I'd like to see him sitting 90 to 92, I think. Knock it up 1 to 2 miles per hour, I think would be helpful. He's always going to be a guy that's more about deception and getting you a spin than anything else. That's why the vertical axis on the fastball profile is interesting to me, because he does something unique when he goes into his windup. He actually shifts the axis as his arm is about to come forward. You see him make an adjustment as the arm goes back into scap retraction. He actually shifts where that tilt would be coming forward. and that creates a unique movement profile. So I think he looks a lot to me in terms of how he gets guys out, like an Ian Anderson of the Braves. It's more about deception than it's going to be beating guys, more about spotting up. And he has the breaking ball and the off speeds to do it. So as long as we get that fastball into the low 90s, I don't see there being a real problem.
Fair. Well, let's jump into some of the more maybe under the radar guys. I know Boone and Jump aren't necessarily like at the top of the radar, but they are guys that likely go in the top 50 or 60. How about some guys that are a little bit more under the radar and maybe you could see elevating into that top 50, top 60 range?
Absolutely. I think the one guy that everyone needs to start watching, he's not SoCal. He's actually in Arkansas. He's a JUCO transfer to the University of Arkansas, is Jalen Battles.
Yeah.
He was a multi-sport athlete in high school. The kid has an elite approach at the plate. He was a little bit underrated going into college. That's why he went the JUCO route. Elite athlete, built similar to Carlos Correa. He's like 6'4", 210, super athletic. At Arkansas, he's going to get on a very good strength program, so we're going to see that power tool go up. It's burgeoning right now. Elite athlete, good arm, good glove. Honestly, I could see him going into the second or maybe the first round, but no one seems to be on him right now.
Yeah, that's a JUCO thing, right? And you know, we've talked about it. And one thing that I do want to talk about just a little bit is, especially as it pertains to a shortstop, you don't need to have 60 power and 55 hit. You don't. If you are a 55 hitter with 55 power at shortstop and you can pick it, that's a first round glove.
Yep.
First round glove. And I think with Jalen Battles, what you're talking about is at least a 55 arm. We don't know what the glove is yet because we haven't seen it a lot. But if he's a 50 bat and a 45 power now with a 55 arm and even a 50 defender at short, that's a guy that's going to go in the top 20 to 40. I don't think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's Nick Lofton. You know, that's basically Nick Lofton.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it, man. I think that's a really good name to watch. And it's probably the type of name that if we do have an SEC season kind of blows up on the radar.
He could. There's one thing to note there, though, with Battles. This is something that more of a progressive team will pick up on, I think. His vertical bat angles are going to be very, very flat in contrast to what we've been seeing of late. As most people know, there's been kind of a launch angle revolution where we're looking for a little bit more of a steep vertical bat angle. And I think the main correlation there is because you're looking for less of a standard deviation in launch angles. You're looking for less of a difference because that allows you to predict your batting average on balls put in play much easier. Battles is going to fall more into that category of we don't know. We've seen teams that are successful at developing guys like that. Alex Bregman has one of the lowest vertical bat angle averages in the league. Randy Arozarena, who just came onto the scene, is also featuring a vertical bat angle that's very, very flat. So if he gets into a progressive type of organization, I think he'll be most successful. But for guys that like data, that is something to watch with him.
It'll be interesting to see how Coach Van Horn in Arkansas kind of tinker with him a little bit because when you think of Arkansas, you know, Heston Kjerstad had a very steep vertical bat angle, and Matt Goodhart lives and dies by it. So, you know, and then there's guys like, you know, Robert Moore that you don't need it. You know, it's not their profile. So he's a big, strong kid. It will be interesting to see how they Caden Wallace. It'll be interesting to see how they deploy his profile. But yeah, I mean, it's a very, very loud body.
Yes,
it's a matter of kind of forecasting what that could be, and that doesn't get by pro squads. It just doesn't. Last question for you, man. I just want to hit. What is the what's kind of your biggest prediction? If you were to make the biggest, boldest prediction you could right now for next July in the draft, what do you got?
I have two.
Okay.
One, I think that Khalil Watson is going to go in the first round. He's kind of caught a lot of eyes of late. He's had a great summer, been a really good fall so far. But from the people that I've talked to, it sounds like they're thinking he's going to continue to trend up. I see him being drafted as a second baseman, not a shortstop, personally. I think that the athleticism that's come into the game as a whole is just bolstering the profiles of shortstops more. And the power bat that you can get at second base with plus athleticism cannot be understated. I could see him going to a club that's not necessarily as data heavy that likes loud tools. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him going to like a San Diego type or someone like that in your 20 to 25 range. I would not be surprised at all to see that, especially if the tools continue to translate. My other one is I think Evan Shaver is going to go in the top 20. He's a special profile out of Cincinnati. He's really unique. He really gets low, super athletic build, really efficient in terms of his usage of energy. I think he still has more left in the tank. Could flirt with triple digits maybe as a left-hander. Very special, good changeup. So I think it could happen.
I think Shaver's a guy that's going to be throwing 95, 6s, and 7s here in no time. I know he's like 3s and 4s right now mostly, but from a lefty in that arm slot, like that's basically 97 when it's at the top of the zone, 98.
Exactly.
Yeah, Shaver's a weird one. You and I both have a little bit of an affinity for those lefties.
Yeah, we do. We do.
And Shaver, there's quite a few of them this year. So I think that'll be fun to watch. So Wyatt, I don't have any other questions for you, man. I think you've been an excellent guest. Do you have any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I would say if you are a fan of a progressive team, I would get on guys like Battles again. I would start digging a little bit more into your mid-major type of players. I think that your draft class, like we said before, in the Power 5 is not as strong. It might be fine on the bat side, but I would really try to familiarize yourself with those under-the-radar group of 5 guys, mid-major guys. I think that they could be some real risers.
Happens every year.
Yep.
George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Nate Pearson, hell, Alex Manoah. Not Manoah. Who was the Jackson Rutledge?
Yes, Rutledge.
Yeah, there's gonna be your Mason Blacks. There's gonna be your Rodney Boones, Evan Shavers. They're coming. So hey, man, it was great having you on.
Looking being here,
chatting for another 10 months, and we'll see you on draft day.